Mr. Butch Browning, State Fire Marshal. Mr. Butch, welcome back to Keel. Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
So there's a lot of, I'm going to say not a lot of new rules from the governor and Mr. Leger at ATC, but there are some of those. We had Mr. Leger on yesterday morning. He didn't mention some of those changes as pertain to games like pool and darts and stuff like that. I assume you knew about this. You saw it coming. What was the reasoning behind that? Can you explain?
So you're talking about the bar games as it relates to as the bars open up. So you're talking about pool and darts and those kind of things?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when the governor did the proclamation that allowed bars to open kind of on a parish opt-in once they reached a certain threshold of 5% of positivities, the CDC guidance at the time talked about how they need to open where people needed to stay seated. So that's where the bar games where people are congregating, more of an amusement type thing, were not put in the proclamation. What we're hoping, and we've been working with the folks that have pool halls and those kind of things to create some mitigation measures. What we're hoping is that in the next round of measures that we can actually incorporate some things to where we can create some mitigation measures where those type of things can happen in a safe environment. So that's where it came from. It started from the CDC guidance from the federal level that said people, if you're going to open bars, people need to be seated. Not a typical bar that we might be used to where people walk around and congregate.
I'm not trying to get restaurants shut down or anything like that, but what's the difference, I guess, between a half a dozen people at a restaurant table seated and 3 people or 2 people at a pool table playing pool?
Well, the issue is typically when you're playing pool, it's people who aren't in the same household. So I come play pool with Aaron, and we're not social distance, that kind of thing. That's what we got to ensure. And I think in the original guidance from the CDC, they did not believe that we were ready for that type of congregant. And look, I'm hoping things get better, and I'm like you. I mean, I want to see everything open, and we give the tools to the businesses to make it safe, and that's what they've been doing. So, I'm hopeful in the weeks to come as we look at loosening some of the things that happen, we can create these same mitigation layers, similar to what we've really done in a lot of other businesses. I mean, a good example, kind of when we had the aquatic situation, when we opened pools, when it got to the right level of risk, where the risk wasn't so bad, those industries, brought to bear some great mitigation measures. So, I mean, we've already looked at some things I think that can happen that can give the prevention where, you can still, maintain sanitation. But that's where it came from.
Does it really in the end just come down to drinking? I mean, at cornhole, you're like 20 feet apart or something like that. Is it really that I guess the governor is getting information from the medical folks that when you're drinking, there's a little more fluid exchange in the air? I don't know what terms to use. Is that part of that equation?
Well, I mean, I guess what I'll tell you is number one, drinking establishments tend to have people congregate as opposed to other things that you might do. But, in this same allowance, what's happening here is those bars have to stop serving and close at 11 p.m. So that's a measure to prevent, people drinking, and as the night gets longer and maybe people become, more assumed by liquor, that they don't social distance.
You still there?
Probably address. Yep. Hear me? Sorry.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. No. So what I was saying is that I think that's why the measures where the bars have to close at 11 p.m. it prevents what may happen in a drinking establishment late where people have been drinking a long time and they forget the social distance. They may start congregating. So the measure of closing at 11, I don't think it's so much about drinking. I think it's so much about a long term drinking where you don't remember what you're supposed to be doing for COVID safety.
We spoke to Ernest Leger yesterday about many bars have been cited, and he said the ones that they're really cracking down on, Butch, and you'll know this because your agents are out there, are the ones that are just flagrantly ignoring the governor's order. Are you seeing that statewide? Is there a problem here in Northwest Louisiana, or is that widespread?
No, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of folks that's just ignoring the federal and state and parish guidance. I just don't think that's the norm. I think in our experience, and we've had this conversation before on your show, we approached it from an education standpoint and giving people the information they needed to safely operate their business. And a lot of people didn't know what that was. I mean, so we've actually, over the past of a 6-month period, we've created a knowledge base of how you mitigate. So I don't think that there's this big group of people that are just defying, the COVID restrictions and the COVID mitigation measures. I think the vast majority of the people are, they want to get their business open. They try and do the right thing. Yeah, they might make mistakes along the way. Yeah, things may happen in their business that they lose control over, but they real quickly try and get it right. I mean, I just don't really see this post of a business saying, come here and don't follow no rules. I mean, I just really hadn't seen a lot of that. And Ernest is right. The ones they've dealt with are probably those. But those are very few when you look at the thousands and thousands of businesses across the state.
Okay, you're still letting video poker machines stay on. Can you explain that reasoning?
So video poker machines, whether they're in a bar or whether they're at a licensed gaming facility, they're regulated by the Gaming Control Board. And their mitigation measures require that people, first off, people are seated and the machines are separated, so you can't sit next to someone by a machine, and they're required to do the same sanitation. So they felt it's a lesser risk in the fact that you stay seated, and it's a one-on-one game. You're not playing the game with anybody else.